Welcome to the Bhagavatam. We've been talking about Prahlad the last few weeks, and today we're reaching the peak of that narrative, that story. This one's about danger. It's about safety. We live in a world that is full of dangers. We no longer face the dangers of the jungle, or tigers, or lions running out to chase us. But we face all kinds of new dangers that affect our health, our longevity, and even our peace of mind. These can range from the foods we eat, to our environment, to our roads, to our weapons of mass destruction. We've developed so many new ways in which to create danger for ourselves. At our core, we long for safety. We want comfort, we want security, and we do everything possible to be able to get that, from getting a house, to an insurance, to savings, you name it. We've got all different plans worked out for safety. And yet, there is no such thing as safety. Our body is a fragile thing. It will get sick, it will get old, and it will ultimately die. Where will we find true safety? Can it even be found? Today we'll read this about the story of Narasimha Dev, who is an incarnation of Vishnu, and how he appeared to save the boy Prahlad from his demonic father, Hiranyakashipu. We will see how the divine, or God, always protects his devotees. And we'll begin to understand that we are not here alone. That even though this world is scary, there is safety, there is protection, there is someone who cares and wants to help us, if only we let him. So join us as we explore some of the topics that are part of the ancient wisdom of the Vedas, that were revealed to us by the wisest people that ever lived on this planet. Welcome back. So I'm going to do a short little recap once again for those of you that might be coming in new. Just to give you the background behind our story today of Narasimha Dev. And it begins here. It begins with the Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Most people want to go to heaven, they want to go to the light. But according to the Vedas, this is what it looks like. The spiritual world is light, and within that light are planets. And those planets are Vaikuntha. They are the planets where the different incarnations of Vishnu, of the divine, live, and where we can be in spiritual form that is not subject to birth, death, old age, or disease. We can also exist in the light as particles of the divine, merged within that light. Now, within all of this are various leelas, and the highest of these planets is Goloka. Anyways, I digress here. The next part of our story then moves on to a particular incident that occurred in the Vaikuntha planets, and that was when the four Kumaras, the sons of Brahma, went to visit, and they were stopped by the gatekeepers Jaya and Vijay. And then these gatekeepers were not kind to them, and so the boys who were highly evolved sages cursed them that they would take birth in this material world. Vishnu intervened, the supreme being. Vishnu intervened and said, well, I'm not going to cancel the curse. I did have a plan to go to the material world, and this might be a great opportunity. I would like the two of you to be there to fight with me. I need some challengers. right? So while I'm there, I need some evil forces to battle with for part of my Leela, for part of my story. And so Jay and Vijay took 3 births in this material world as demoniac beings, meaning who were against God, who were vicious and cruel to all creatures, and were terrorizing everyone. The first of those were their incarnation as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. That's when Varaha, Vishnu incarnated as Varaha and fought with Hiranyaksha. In this particular scene that you may have come across earlier. The scene then moved on to the brother of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, who then performed severe austerities and penances to be able to fight with Vishnu. He hated Vishnu. And so he eventually got blessings from Brahma that he could not be killed either in the day or the night, either at land or at sea, either in the inside of the house or the outside of the house, neither by animal nor by human. All these different things. He could not be killed on land or on water, in the air. It was trying to be immortal, undefeatable. And once he received these blessings because of his tremendous austerities, he began to terrorize the entire universe. And as he went about doing so, he created hell on earth, not on earth, but everywhere. The next situation occurred when he had a son. And this son, Prahlad, turned out to be a devotee of his enemy, a lover of God, of Vishnu. And now Hiranyakashipu tried to change him, tried to reform his son, tried to get his teachers to help out. None of that worked. So eventually, he decided to kill him. He decided that this son is not worth, he's not, a good son. He's a bad son, like a rotten apple. He has to be crushed and destroyed. But this boy was a great devotee of God. And so what happened next was, while Hiranyakashipu tried to kill him, have his people kill the boy, pierce him with all kinds of things, and daggers and tridents and snakes, and throw him off a cliff, nothing worked. Prahlad could not be killed. And at this point, the father, exasperated, almost gave up. Then he decided, because Prahlad was always meditating on God. He was focused on his devotion, on his love for God, and as a result of which he was always protected. He was never, no one could harm him. No one could in any way trouble him. And that's really the takeaway from this story, is that when we develop that quality of devotion that Prahlad has, then nothing can harm us. Then even if terrible things happen, because terrible things happened even to Prahlad, we will not be affected by them. We will not become angry. We will not see people as our friends or our enemies. We will not hate. It's very easy for people to go about saying, oh, this person wronged me and now I hate them, and then to try to do things back to them, to seek revenge. Or no, Prahlad didn't have any of that. To him there was no friend, no enemy. Everyone was a part of God. And he began to instruct his classmates in all of this philosophy of his. And that made everyone, his father and his teachers, even more upset. Ultimately, his father decided to take things into his own hands. So from here we continue. When Prahlad's teachers observed that all the students were becoming advanced in God consciousness because of the association of Prahlad, they were afraid. Who was afraid? The teachers were afraid. Why? Because Prahlad was now influencing all his fellow students and making them God conscious. But you see, he was born in a family of asuras. Asuras are the opposite of devas. Devas are the demigods, are the people who are devoted to God, who are people who are God conscious. and who have highly evolved on that path. But the asuras are the opposite. They're the ones who hate God. They're the ones who want to try to defy the orders of what is dharma in this world and living by the code of conduct that God wants us to live by. So they are known as asuras. Now, a lot of people think that because they belong to a particular religion, they are therefore acting according to God. But the principles of what God teaches us, no matter what religion you go to, are all the same. God is not different for one religion or another. God is the same. And while there are many who will teach that God is different, my God is different from your God, that's utter nonsense. That which created the universe is the same for everyone. God does not have a religion. God does not belong to any sect or segment of people. You can call him by any name you like. You can call him, like Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. God is not affected by your religion or by the name you call him or by any other such thing. What is important is that you understand the qualities of God and don't start believing that anything or anyone is God. That you understand a thing by its qualities, just as you understand gold by its qualities. That you understand the qualities of a saintly person. That you understand the qualities of what it means to spiritually grow. And don't just get taken in by some charismatic person who might say something appealing to you. So here we have the story of Prahlad and his father now, the king of the asuras, of the demonic people. And this person is so angry with his own son that he is now going to kill him. Hiranyakashipu was so angry that his body was trembling. He decided to kill his son by any means. Hiranyakashipu was by nature very cruel, and feeling insulted, he began hissing like a snake trampled upon by someone's foot. His son Prahlad, on the other hand, was peaceful, mild, and gentle. His senses were under control. These are the signs of a spiritually evolved person, is that they are peaceful, mild, gentle. Their senses are under control. When his father called for him, Prahlad stood in front of his father with folded hands. Although young Prahlad should not have been chastised. Why? Because he was a very saintly and beautiful young boy. Yet with glaring eyes, his father rebuked him with harsh words. He said, "O most impudent, most unintelligent disruptor of the family, O lowest of mankind, you have violated my power and are an obstinate fool. Today I shall kill you. My son Prahlad, you rascal, you know that when I am angry, everyone trembles. By whose power has a rascal like you become so impudent that you now appear fearless?" Prahlad replied, "My dear king, my dear father, the source of my strength is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He is not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one can get any strength. Whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior, everyone is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Godhead. He is the supreme controller, the time factor, the power of the senses, the power of the mind, the power of the body, and the vital force within us. His influence is unlimited. He is the best of all living entities, the controller of material nature. By his power, he creates this cosmic manifestation, maintains it, and annihilates it. My dear father, please give up your demonic mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends, and make your mind equipoised toward everyone." And then he says something really, really important. Pay attention here. "Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world." When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshipping God perfectly. Let me repeat this again. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised towards everyone, means equal towards everyone. Except for the uncontrolled, misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, what does it mean to see everyone on the platform of equality? It means to realize that just as I am a spirit soul, I am a soul inhabiting this body, so is the other person. Just as I am a particle of God, so also is the other person. Every person within this world, whether good or evil, whether this religion or that religion, whether atheist or divine, is a spiritual part of God. And in that sense, we are none different. There is no difference between the saint and the sinner. There is no difference between good and evil. Those dualities are what is created by the mind. And yes, there are consequences for those actions if one commits such actions. But at the core, even the person who commits the most awful and terrible of actions, at the core is a spiritual being, a part of God, a child of God. We have to understand that and live from there. Whatever consequences there are to any wrong deeds that they do, that's between them and God. There is a karmic system that will act accordingly. You do not need to get involved and hate someone or love someone. It is simply this, that we are all part of God. How would you treat God if God came to your door, if God came in front of you? That's how you want to treat every person you come across, with the same respect, with the same veneration, with the same level of kindness. Not because you're better, not because they're worse, but because we're all the same at the core. Our bodies may look different. Our minds may think differently. We may have different beliefs. But nevertheless, regardless of gender, regardless of whatever we think, whatever we know, whatever we believe, how old we are, how rich we are all the same. Prahlad continues, in former times there were many fools like you, he's telling his father, who did not conquer the 6 enemies. So he's now, after speaking about that there are no enemies or friends, he talks about 6 enemies. Who are the 6 enemies? The 5 senses and the mind that steal away the wealth of a person. These fools are very proud. They think, I have conquered all my enemies. Now, of course, he's referring to foolish people who think and believe in terms of friends and enemies. They feel that I have conquered all my enemies. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies, that is the mind and the senses, and is equipoised towards all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. So one who creates a feeling of us versus them is merely in ignorance. One who creates a sense of my way is better than your way is merely in ignorance. Whether that person be a scientist or whether that person be of a certain religion, it doesn't matter. Anyone who thinks in terms of us versus them is misguided and in ignorance. This is a key piece to understand, that the real enemies are not outside us, but are inside us. The real enemy is our mind and our senses. When our senses are out of control, they take us in all different directions, seeking all kinds of things, trying to find all kinds of pleasures, which cannot satisfy us, which waste our life, and which therefore rob us of the opportunity of getting closer to God. Therefore, they are our enemies. Our mind, which gets influenced by all of these senses and which is influenced by the world, is equally our enemy. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for one whose mind is under control, will be the best of friends. And for one who has failed to control their mind, it will be the greatest enemy. So one who has controlled the mind and senses, they will now be there to serve you. You will not be serving them. They will be serving you. They will serve you in your service to God. But the other way around, when you're simply serving your mind or serving your senses, then they're going to drag you all over the place with all kinds of attractive things that draw your senses in, draw your tongue or your taste buds or your, sexual desires or your eyes, your ears, whatever senses are being pulled in, you will keep going towards that like a moth to a flame. There's no end to it. The more we're attached to these senses and our mind, the more we get entangled within this world and keep coming back into the cycle of birth and death. Father says to Prahlad, he says, "You rascal, you are trying to minimize my value as if you were better than me at controlling the senses. I can therefore understand that you desire to die at my hands, for this kind of nonsensical talk is indulged in by those who are about to die. O most unfortunate Prahlad, you have always described a supreme being other than me, a supreme being who is above everything, who is the controller of everyone, and who is all-pervading. But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present before me in this pillar? Because you are speaking so much nonsense, I shall sever your head from your body. Let me see your worshipable God come to protect you. I want to see it." Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very strong and powerful, chastised Prahlad, his young son. Prahlad was about 5 years old. Chastised him with harsh words, abusing him again and again. He then took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the pillar. Then from within the pillar came a fearful sound, which appeared to resound throughout the universe. Everyone, everywhere, heard this tumultuous sound and became afraid. To prove that the statement of Prahlad was substantial, that is to prove that God is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Being, Hari, emerged from the pillar in that assembly hall in a wonderful form that had never been before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion, and was called Narasimha Dev. Narasimha. Nara means human, and Singha means lion. So human and lion in one. I'll show you some pictures in a moment. His form was extremely fearsome. So this is Vishnu, the Supreme Being, God, appearing as half man, half lion. Why? Because Hiranyakashipu, the demonic father of Prahlad, had been blessed that he could not be killed by a human or by an animal. He could not be killed by anyone's hands or by any weapon. There were so many conditions by which Hiranyakashipu had tried to make himself immortal. But Vishnu, being smarter than the smartest, found his way around the loophole, around all of that, and came in the form of Narasimha. His form, as it says, was extremely fearsome. His angry eyes resembled molten gold. His shining mane expanded the dimensions of his fearful face. His deadly teeth and his razor-sharp tongue moved about like a dueling sword. His eyes were erect and motionless, and his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like caves of a mountain. His jaws parted fearfully, and his entire body seemed to touch the sky. His neck was very short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and the hairs on his body as white as the rays of the moon. His arms spread in all directions, killing demons, rogues, and atheists with his weapons, conch-shelled disc, the club, and the lotus. Hiranyakashipu murmured,
Vishnu, who possesses great mystic power, has made this plan to kill me. But what is the use of such an attempt? Who can fight with me?
Then he picked up his club and attacked Narasimha like an elephant. Let's take a look at some pictures. Narasimha, half lion, half man, Vishnu appearing to protect his devotee. Here you have Narasimha on the left, Hiranyakashipu on the right, and Prahlad, the young boy, standing there with his hands folded. Hiranyakashipu attacking Narasimha. Remember, Hiranyakashipu thought of himself as immortal. No one could destroy him. Just as a small insect falls forcefully into a fire and the insignificant creature becomes invisible, when Hiranyakashipu attacked the effulgent Narasimhadev, he became invisible. Let me explain this to you. This is not at all astonishing, for Vishnu is light and always situated in pure goodness. Formerly, during creation, he entered the dark universe and illuminated it with his spiritual effulgence. So this is at the moment of creation. Vishnu appears as the light within the dark universe and illuminates it with his spiritual effulgence. All the light that is here, from the sun to all the other planets here, are an emanation of Vishnu's effulgence. He is the source of the light, and he is the one that takes out all the darkness. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaha. He is that jyoti who removes the tamas. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaha. So it says here that just as an insect forcefully falls into a fire and the insignificant creature becomes invisible, so when he goes in the fire, literally bursts into flames, Hiranyakashipu attacked the effulgent Narasimhadev and became invisible. Thereafter, the great demon Hiranyakashipu, who was extremely angry, swiftly attacked Narasimha with his club and began to beat him, hitting him with the club. Narasimha captured the demon and then allowed him to slip from his hand, just as an eagle sometimes plays with a snake and lets it slip from his mouth. Now you see, Vishnu's whole plan was not only to protect his devotee, but also have some fun in the process. Like, a little wrestling match, a little fun here. Let's enjoy this whole thing, little leela pastimes. God is not a boring God sitting in the clouds, waiting, on a throne, wanting to punish everybody. No. He's a playful God, who wants to have fun, who wants to enjoy just as we do. The problem is we're trying to enjoy in the world, and the world only backfires on us. Whatever enjoyment we have to work really hard at it, and whatever pleasure we get is momentary and fleeting. But when that same enjoyment is with God, it is eternal and everlasting. God also, just as we like to enjoy, He likes to enjoy. He is the ultimate enjoyer. He is the supreme enjoyer. And what is He enjoying? He enjoys His leela, His pastimes. This is one of His pastimes. So when He came here, He wanted to enjoy a little bit. So He lets Hiranyakashipu slip from His hands. Then the demigods who'd been watching and who had lost their homes to this demon and who were praying and hoping that somehow they'd be saved because this guy had come and he'd taken over every place in the universe and he'd conquered everything and terrorized everyone. When they saw Hiranyakashipu slip out of the hands of Narasimha, they became very perturbed. Hiranyakashipu now thought that Vishnu was afraid of his prowess. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, he's afraid of me. Just watch how I kill him. Thereafter, after taking a little rest from the fight, Hiranyakashipu picked up his sword and shield this time, and again attacked with great force. making a loud, shrill sound of laughter, the Supreme Godhead Narayan. Narayan is a name for Vishnu, Hari, and many names. God has thousands of names. So making a shrill sound of laughter, the Supreme Godhead Narayan, who is extremely strong and powerful, captured Hiranyakashipu, who was protecting himself with his sword and shield, trying to leave no gap open, like really skillfully fighting. With the speed of a hawk, Hiranyakashipu moved sometimes in the sky and sometimes on earth. So he was able to fly, he was able to jump, he was able to do from all kinds of angles. His eyes, however, were closed because of fear of Narasimha's laughter. As a snake captures a mouse, or as an eagle captures a venomous snake, Narasimhadev captured Hiranyakashipu. As Hiranyakashipu moved his limbs here and there and all around, very much afflicted at being captured, Narasimhadev placed the demon on his lap. Why his lap? Because remember, Hiranyakashipu had the boon that he could not be killed either in the air or on the land. So he put him on his lap, supporting him with his thighs, and in the doorway of the assembly hall, so that way he was not inside the house or outside. He was in the doorway of the assembly hall. And then he very easily tore the demon to pieces with the nails of his hand. Not with his hand, because the promise had been that he could not be killed by any human or any animal, not by anyone's hand or by any weapon. Narasimhadev then killed him with his nails. Narasimhadev's mouth and mane was sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Godhead Narasimhadev decorated himself with a garland of intestines taken from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, and he resembled a lion that has just killed an elephant. You might wonder, why this gory, gruesome story? Why the killing of someone? Yeah, you might wonder. This is Narasimha. There is the boy Prahlad, and there is Hiranyakashipu on the lap of Narasimha. Take you back one. Maybe it's clearer now. Okay. So, why this gory situation? Well, to protect the devotee. It's a very simple answer. This young boy, Prahlad, was a devotee of God, loved God. And he was being terrorized by this father of his, who was out to kill him. He had made many, many attempts at trying to kill the boy. Each time the boy had been saved. But finally, not only to protect him, but also to prove to Hiranyakashipu that he could be found everywhere. Narasimhadev appeared from within the pillar just to prove the point that God is everywhere, in everything, in everyone. And so when he finally killed him, it was to break that power, that ego, that arrogance of Hiranyakashipu. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he incarnates millennium after millennium to annihilate the miscreants and to establish the principles of Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma is the code of conduct by which humans need to live. So that is the Dharma of society. There are many kinds of Dharma. There is the Dharma you have, that is your responsibility to your family. There is the Dharma you have in your work ethic. There is your Dharma which is about your spirituality. That is the ultimate Dharma, Paradharma. Right? This Bhagavatam is known as Paradharma. That is to say, the highest form of duty, the highest form of responsibility that we have is to our spiritual growth and evolution. It is to that this beautiful text brings us. So it's important to understand it. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask, because I'm sure there are questions in your mind as to why it had to be this way. For those of you that are kind and compassionate and loving beings, you will say, oh my God, this is so violent. Why does it have, how can it be like this? But you know what? Sometimes to get rid of a thing, like when you have a thorn, you may have to use another sharp object. The saying goes, to remove a thorn, you have to sometimes use a thorn. To get rid of something that is violent, you may have to use violence. It is not that violence is good or bad. Violence is neither good nor bad. A knife is neither good nor bad. A knife can be used to kill someone, but can also be used to cut fruit. So if violence is used for dharma, that is to make sure that those who are miscreants, those that are harassing people, those that are torturing people, that those people, like say for example Hitler in our time, are destroyed, that is good. That is a good use of violence. Violence, on the other hand, that is used to kill innocent people is not a good use of violence. That is adharma. It is against the ways of God. And sometimes we do it from a place of retaliation, and we may think we are therefore justified. But no, violence will keep begetting violence. And that is not the way of God. So back to our story. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had many, many arms, first uprooted Hiranyakashipu's heart and then threw him aside and turned towards the demon soldiers. The soldiers were very faithful followers of Hiranyakashipu and had come in thousands to fight for him. But Narasimhadev killed all of them merely with the ends of his nails. The hair on Narasimhadev's head shook the clouds and scattered them here and there. His glaring eyes stole the effulgence of the luminaries in the sky, and his breathing agitated the seas and oceans. Because of his roaring, all the elephants in the world began to cry in fear. Airplanes were thrown into outer space, and because of the pressure of his lotus feet, the earth appeared to slip from its position, and all the hills and mountains shifted due to his intolerable force. Because of his bodily effulgence, the sky in all directions diminished in its natural illumination. Narasimha, being very angry and finding no contestant to face his power, then sat in the assembly hall on the throne of the king. Out of fear, no one came near him. Hiranyakashipu had been exactly like a fever of meningitis in the head of the three worlds. That's a horrible fever that comes over some people, and it destroys them from the inside. The demons, the demigods and their wives were filled with joy and showered flowers on him like rain. The airplanes of the demigods who desired to see the activities of the Supreme Godhead crowded the sky. They began beating drums and began to dance and sing. Then, headed by Brahma, Indra and Shiva, as well as great saintly persons, they approached Narasimha, who glowed with intense light. They individually offered their respects and prayers with folded hands. But no one, not even Lakshmi, Narasimha's wife, Vishnu's wife, dared come close to him because he was still very angry. He was angry for what? At this person who had been tormenting his devotee. Then Brahma called on Prahlad to appease Narasimha, the young boy, Prahlad. Although Prahlad was a small boy, he prostrated himself at Narasimhadev's feet. The gigantic half-man, half-lion form of the Lord raised the boy and placed his hand on the head of his devotee. By the touch of Narasimha's hand on Prahlad's head, the boy became thoroughly cleansed of all material contamination and desires. He became transcendently situated, and ecstatic symptoms manifest in his body. His heart filled with love, and his eyes with tears. And as he captured the lotus feet of the Lord within the core of his heart, then with full attention in complete trance, he began to offer prayers in love with a faltering voice. So this is that scene of Narasimha being pacified by Prahlad, the young boy speaking to him with love and devotion. Prahlad said, "How is this possible? I was born in a family of asuras, of demonic people, and I am not at all qualified that you would touch me or hold me. All one's material opulences cannot satisfy the Supreme Godhead. However, he is easily satisfied with love and devotion. One who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and life to the Supreme Godhead is better than a highly qualified priest or Brahmin, because the devotee, the lover of God, can purify his entire family, whereas the so-called priest or Brahmin in a position of false prestige cannot even purify himself. The Supreme Lord is fully satisfied in himself and does not need anything from anyone. Whatever service one offers him is for one's own benefit. Anyone may be purified of material life if he offers prayers to the Lord and hears his glories. Dear Narasimha Dev, your appearance in this fearful form is your pastime for your own pleasure. Such an incarnation is always meant for the protection and improvement of the universe. Please cease your anger now that my father has been killed. The entire universe has achieved great satisfaction because of the death of this demon. Now they are confident of their happiness, and they will always remember your auspicious incarnation in order to be free from fear. My Lord, who are never conquered by anyone, I am certainly not afraid of your ferocious form. You are most kind to fallen souls such as myself. When will that moment come when you will call me to the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the ultimate goal of liberation from conditional life? At this point, if you notice, Prahlad is thinking of himself as the most lowly, the most fallen, the most unworthy, the most undeserving of the blessings that he is receiving. This kind of humility is what is needed on the path of love of God. One who thinks that they are something will not get anything, because as long as you are full of yourself, which is what our world today teaches us to do, is to think highly of yourself, to be confident, to know, to stand up for yourself, and all of these things, which may seem wonderful in terms of achieving things and so on. But when it comes to the things of the heart, whether you're in a relationship with somebody or whether you're a lover of God, your pride, your feelings of worth will mean nothing. A true devotee sees themselves as worthless. That which would cause depression in someone causes the greatest form of love. Why is that? Because it's the truth. We are all tiny little fragments on this universe. We're atomic in size. We think we're something, but that's our ego. Our ego wants to be significant. It wants to matter. It wants to be something. It wants to be recognized. It wants to be respected. It wants to be appreciated. It wants to be valued. It wants to be... But that's all the ego. That will not bring you any spiritual growth. Your ego will only take you away from spirit. It will only take you away from God. If you really want to make spiritual progress, then you've got to let go of this thing. Not only your mind, but also the ego. Because it is that trap, that identification with this body, with this mind, with your achievements, with your possessions, all of that attachment, with your sense of worth, that attachment is what will keep you in this world. But the day you recognize that you are nothing, that you are unworthy, and use that in prayer, use that in surrender, use that in a place of offering yourself to the divine, to God, saying, I am not worthy of you, and yet you are so kind to me, you are so loving to me, you have blessed me in so many ways, you've given me life, you've given me even the beating of my heart, the ability to stand, so much you have given me. the air, the sunshine, the moon, the stars, the sun. You have blessed me in so many ways. And I'm so unworthy that I take it for granted, that I think that, oh, all this is just going on and I'm just busy trying to make a living, make ends meet, and I don't have any time for you. You who are my everything, I have forgotten you. You who have given me everything, including the very life that I have forgotten you. So it is this feeling of humility, this feeling of love that brings us to God. Prahlad continues, although there are many remedies by which to get out of a miserable life, any such remedies might be temporarily beneficial but are ultimately impermanent and more miserable than the miseries themselves. So in other words, just to put it simply, we've tried to solve the problems of our life, right? We've tried to solve them with all kinds of solutions, whether it is we invented cars, we invented houses and air conditioning, but all of that has ruined our environment. It has ruined our world. He says here, for example, a father and mother cannot protect their child, much as they want to. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. Maybe to some degree, they might get some temporary relief, but ultimately, a suffering patient cannot be relieved, meaning that they will ultimately have to die. If that moment comes or that kind of disease is there, then ultimately even the physician cannot do anything. And a boat in the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. Therefore, I think that the only remedy is to engage in your service. Kindly instruct me in how I should do so. My Lord, O Supreme, no one can conquer you. As for me, however, I am being crushed by the wheel of time, and therefore I surrender fully unto you. Now kindly take me under the protection of your lotus feet. My dear Lord, people in general want a long duration of life, opulence, and enjoyment, but I have seen all of these through the activities of my father. When my father was angry and he laughed sarcastically at the demigods, they were immediately vanquished simply by seeing the movements of his eyebrows. Yet my father, who was so powerful, has now been vanquished by you within a moment. My dear Lord, now I have complete experience concerning the worldly opulence, mystic power, longevity, and other material pleasures enjoyed by all living entities. As powerful time, you destroy them all. Therefore, because of my experience, I do not wish to possess them. In this way, he continues in his prayer. In this material world, he says, every living entity desires some future happiness, which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert, or happiness in the material world? As for this body, what is its value? It is merely a source of various diseases. He's breaking the illusion that we have, that there might be happiness here. You know, the whole pursuit for happiness is the biggest trap that we've been sold. That we will never be happy in this world. That is the reality. That no matter what we have, no matter how much we have, no matter how young we are, no matter how beautiful we are, no matter what we possess, no matter how great our job, no matter how brilliant you are, none of that will ever give you happiness. Because the happiness you seek will be temporary, momentary, fleeting. But we want happiness that will always be there. That happiness, which will always be there, which requires no effort, no work, no struggle, is right here within us. It is not in our body, it is not in our mind, it is not in our ego, it is not in our possessions, it is not in our loved ones. It is within us as a soul, there within your soul. Your soul is Sat Chit Ananda. Ananda means blissful. You are a blissful being. I, you, all of us. We are blissful beings. Our very nature is Ananda. Ananda Mayo Bhyasat. That bliss has no cause. That bliss has no reason. It just is. And it is your birthright. It is who you are. Prahlad continues, people aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after the so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. I think if you hear that example that he's giving, it's almost like someone running after a mirage in a desert, and then they just like, there's nothing there. And then they finally end up just falling down and collapsing and dying in the pursuit. O Supreme Being, I was born in a family full of the hellish material qualities, yet by your causeless mercy you have put your lotus hand upon my head. Unlike an ordinary living entity, you do not discriminate between friends and enemies, the favorable and the unfavorable, because for you there is no conception of higher and lower. You offer your benedictions and blessings according to the level of one's service, exactly as a desire tree delivers fruits according to one's desires. There's a lot more, but I think I may have to. Well, let's read a little bit more. O Supreme Godhead, because of my association with material desires one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant Narad Muni, that's his guru, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. My dear Lord, you alone manifest yourself as the entire cosmic manifestation, meaning you, or God, manifests as the entire cosmic manifestation. You existed before the creation. You exist after the annihilation of this entire creation. And you are the maintainer between the beginning and the end. Therefore, whatever exists externally and internally is you alone. My mind is extremely sinful and lusty, being sometimes so-called happy and sometimes so-called distressed. My mind is full of lamentation and fear, and it always seeks more and more money. Thus it has become most polluted and is never satisfied in topics concerning you. I am therefore most fallen and poor. In such a status of life, how shall I be able to discuss your activities? See, he puts himself actually in our shoes. He himself is truly not like that. We've seen from his earlier story that he was not at all like that. He was constantly engaged in meditation, and he had no desire for material and worldly things. And yet he puts himself in our shoes and speaks what we find it hard to speak. And by doing so, he connects with us. O infallible one, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman. So he's saying all these things are pulling us. The sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more. And the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to useless songs. In this way, I am certainly embarrassed. Kindly look upon us, not only upon me, but also upon all others who are suffering, and by your causeless mercy and compassion, deliver us. You are the friend of all suffering humanity, and for great personalities, it is necessary to show mercy to the foolish. O best of great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for those foolish people who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am deeply concerned with love for them. I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor, foolish people. I know that without God consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. Narasimha was pacified by the prayers of Prahlad and gave up his anger. I think we'll continue the rest next week, and there's just a little bit more. He says, might as well do a little bit more here. Narasimha then spoke. He says, my dear Prahlad, most gentle one, all good fortune unto you. I am very much pleased with you. It is my pastime to fulfill the desires of all living beings, and therefore you may ask from me any benediction that you desire to be fulfilled. My dear Prahlad, May you live a long time. One cannot appreciate or understand me without pleasing me, but one who has seen or pleased me has nothing more for which to lament for his own satisfaction. My dear Prahlad, you are very fortunate. Please know from me that those who are wise and highly elevated try to please me in all different ways, for I am the only person who can fulfill all the desires of everyone. Now, Prahlad was being offered everything and anything that he might want. And what did he do? He says, nah, I don't want anything. I only want to help others. I only want that those who are not able to understand this, who are stuck in this world, may be freed. Please help them. We'll continue next week. But right now, let me take up your questions. Let's see what you've all been writing. Okay. I'm glad you liked the voiceover effects. Okay. All right. So you're saying within the forest, a bell, shiny white, held by two angels. Below are many flowers, beauty, and truth surrounds this bell, and all within its shadow light. Each time the bell rings, know that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. There's guidance from within you and without you. Remember, there is no one above you, and you will not put anyone below you. Okay, let's read that again. Within the forest, a bell, shiny white, held by two angels. Below are many flowers, beauty and truth holds this bell, and all within its shadow light. Each time the bell rings, know that. There is guidance from within you and without you. Remember, there is no one above you, and you will not put anyone below you. Okay, I think that part of the message is clear. Right? That sense of no one is higher and no one is lower, no one is greater and no one is smaller. We are all the same. Protect and be gentle to yourself. I am that I am with you, and I am the only one who can touch you. Just do what is correct. Your being will be fulfilled. Yes. Do that which is correct is dharma. To follow the path of dharma is to follow the ways of God. If you don't know what they are, you can see for yourself that which makes you thrive is that which is intended by God. So, for example, the foods that make you thrive and give you peace and give your body happiness, what are they? What are the people that make you thrive, that bring you closer to God? What are the activities that make you more peaceful and closer to God? Like this, you get to know that which is best for you. Right? Just do what is correct, you said. Yeah. I am that, and I am with you. I am the only one who can touch you. Just do what is correct. Protect and be gentle to yourself. Yes, for sure. Be gentle with yourself, because we're all very hard on ourselves. We're all very critical of ourselves. I think the greatest danger we face is not from the outside, but is from the inside. The greatest harm that is caused to us is not by anyone else, but by our mind, by ourselves. We are our greatest enemy. And by we, I don't mean you as the soul. I mean we as the person who identifies with the body and mind and ego. That personality, that being, that is what is the hardest, the greatest enemy, the most harsh upon ourselves. And if you truly want to be free from this world and you want to be happy, then it's important to recognize this. The mind can be trained. The mind can be tamed. It's a process. It requires two things. It requires your effort through meditation, which I find the most powerful form of meditation is to chant the names of God. And the other is by grace. You can't do it alone. If you want to feel safe in the world, if you want to feel protected in the world, if you want to grow spiritually, if you want to come closer to God, all of that requires grace. And what grace requires is your prayer. And what is the greatest prayer? It is the prayer of surrender. It is the prayer in which you annihilate the false self. And when you annihilate the false self, as in you bring it to zero, and that's where the whole point of humility is, you bring the false self to zero, to nothingness. Then within that nothingness, that which is everything, that is God, enters into the vacuum. You will find everything comes into it. So that which is God will fill you with its presence the moment you empty the vessel of this being. When you empty your mind of who you think you are, then you will create room for God. But as long as you're full of yourself, as long as you're full of what you think you are, there's no room for God. As long as you think you know, as long as you think you are aware of, you think you've achieved, no, then you're nowhere. I see. In January 1992, spontaneously from an elderly woman who slipped into a catatonic trance and channeled the above message. Very beautiful. Some of which I can share. This is appropriate to share in tonight's session. Thank you. Thank you so much, Celie, for sharing this. Appreciate it very much. And thank you all for being here. Des, thank you. Thank you for all the ways in which your presence has been inspiring to me. Thank you for encouraging me by being here. Please know that if this is an act of love, it's an act of service, and that I'm here for you to support you in any way you need. So if you've got any questions at all, even now, later, or now, or any time, I'm here for you. Please give me the opportunity to be able to serve in any way I can. Take care. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you for being here. See you next week. Hmm.